There is a massive movement happening within the longevity and aging landscape. It turns out there is much we can do to extend our lifespan and reverse the effects of aging. What we've been taught and led to believe about aging and human disease are now outdated and no longer accurate. That means it's time to change the current mainstream paradigm and have different kinds of conversations when it comes to our well-being. And it's time to recognize that we have the power within ourselves to dictate and drive our own health span and aging journey. Hi, I'm Suzaida Hippolito, host of Timeless Vitality, where we are redefining aging so we become truly timeless. For you, our viewers, I have a question for you. Have you heard the term limiting beliefs? Raise your hand if you have. And now I'm curious, to what extent do you fully understand the term limiting beliefs? And if you're hearing limiting beliefs for the first time, that's absolutely perfect. The first time I heard about limiting beliefs was several years ago when I first entered the world of personal development. And when I first heard it, it took me a bit to wrap my mind around what is a limiting belief. Now I can identify limiting beliefs. In fact, in the work that I do with my clients and my students, I help them identify their own limiting beliefs so we can reprogram them and create new, expansive, empowering beliefs. Now, here's the thing. Our belief systems and structures is the lens through which we experience ourselves, life, and others. In other words, the story that we tell ourselves, about our lives, about the world is born out of our individual and collective belief systems. Now, there's this saying in the personal development world, change your beliefs, change your mind, change your life. I'm excited to introduce our speaker today. She is an exceptional, very gifted, and very skillful individual or biohacker. That's what I want to call you. Let me say that again. She is a very gifted, exceptional, and highly skillful biohacker in reprogramming limiting beliefs. She has worked with thousands of clients over the past 14 years, healing anxiety, depression, low self-worth, addictions, and unhealthy habits, and more. In fact, she is recognized around the world as the subconscious biohacker. And the program that she has developed is so effective that her success rate with clients is 98%. 98%. Her name is Tina-Nomad Higgens. And a little fun fact about Tina, she has been to over 50 countries. And with all her travels, she became curious. And the thing that she became curious about was around our human potential. And that curiosity caused her to decide she wanted to understand how to achieve our full human potential so we can live fuller, more productive, healthier lives. Welcome, Tina.
Thank
So
you for
great to
having
have
me.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, where in the world are you these days after
I'm
all those
currently
travels?
in I'm currently in Ireland. I just came back from Saudi Arabia and Dubai about a month ago, and yeah, I'll be in Mexico and the U.S. next month. But yeah, I'm in Ireland right now, Killarney.
Oh, I love it. You are all over the different continents. And I'm curious, I want to go straight to your story and your world travels because what I learned about you in your bio is you became fully immersed in at least 7 different cultures. and you really learned about the humanity of those cultures. And so tell us about this curiosity around developing our human potential. When did that all happen for you?
Well, I mean, I think I've always been fascinated. I really think that's what I was born into was to be part of the change and evolution of tapping into more of what the human species is actually capable of, our full potential. But I guess to take it back, if we go back education wise, I studied psychology in university. I worked as a counselor and crisis shelters for teens and so on. And then I kind of hit a burnout. So I switched fields and went into education. And I think what really started my passion into how do we tap more into our full potential was kind of looking at the average or above average functioning person, including myself, and how long a lot of people are spending in traditional modes of therapy talking about their problems. And I feel pretty,
Mm.
pretty aware and intelligent. And I know the what, the when, the where, the why of why these things were, problematic for me included. So why is that knowledge and awareness not enough to shift it? And so that's when I was living
Mm.
in Japan. As she mentioned, I've lived in about 10. I've lived in 10 countries now, and been to 60 plus. And so the cultural view is, very very important to really looking at our potential, not only from our cultural and individual standpoint, but from worldview. But when I was living in Japan, I started to research really the answer to this question: why are there so many people that understand where their problems are coming from, but that's not enough to change it? And so that's when I started to research the
Mm.
subconscious. And I realized that the subconscious is really the seat of everything of any real importance in us as humans. It's the seat of all of our programming, whether that's the body's programming. It's in charge of the body. It's in charge of, our entire programming, as you mentioned, for our belief system, our physiological program. Everything is at the subconscious level. So I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a pretty logical person. I'm like, well, why aren't we just making changes at the subconscious level? This doesn't make a lot of sense for people like me who are efficiency and results driven. Instead of, talking about my problems for years, I would love to see the results grow and evolve and move
Yeah.
on to the next level. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So that's when I
Mhm.
really started to, I moved back from Japan. I moved back to the US to go and attend the best hypnotherapy schools that I could find of and find, and NLP and so on. And finally, in that course, always searching for what is getting faster, more efficient, and powerful, long lasting, permanent results. And so
Mm.
in that process, I was, I was privileged to find my mentor, Patrick Singleton, who developed kind of something called inner mind sourcing. So we treat the brain very much like a computer. And so giving it all of the capability that it has, and it has more than we're even aware of. But speaking, I compare my job more to a computer upgrader than anything else, or a computer programmer. And so instead of talking to the person as much, when we're doing limiting beliefs, I elicit what I can from the person, but then also issue specific. If it's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's self-esteem, then I have a realm of common limiting beliefs, as well as, physiology and so
Mm.
on, and associations. And so we really go at breaking all of that at the subconscious level and having the subconscious do it for us, instead of the person. So having the subconscious break these associations, having the subconscious pull out these limiting beliefs, limiting biological programming, limiting programming in general from every level possible. The conscious, the subconscious, the DNA, the RNA, the cellular memory, the neurological levels, the nervous system, and just being super thorough. And being that thorough
Mm.
gets us the results that, that Patrick and I are able to get, where we can see complete resolve, as you mentioned, 98% of the time for almost any single issue anyone throws at us, between like 1 and 6 sessions. And so it's a really really profound way to work. The skill set combined with the subconscious is such a powerful thing, and I feel it's
Mm.
definitely the most untapped tool that we have in our possession. The subconscious, it's
Mm.
such a powerful tool and very often overlooked.
There's so much to unpack in what you shared, and I feel like that's given the audience a really beautiful summary of the highlights of what your work is about. Now I want to take it back to kind of the basics, because our audience, we have a big audience pool where a lot of what we're talking about in this summit is disruptive and it's very new and it's like, wow, many people are hearing it for the first time. So I want to take it back to the basics. Now, you mentioned some big words, the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. For people who are hearing this for the first time, can you give the basics of that and just what does that all mean?
Well, I mean, I'll go to the very basics, and the conscious mind is simply, that's kind of what we're talking with now, and the listener, what you're listening with in general. We're it's our logical, it's our rational mind, all of that. That said, the majority of everything else is at the subconscious level, which is not logical or rational. It's none of those things. And so people are always wondering, well, why do I have this issue? Why do I have this fear, this phobia? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing ever happened to me, but I have this irrational, thing. And that's the thing. Our programming, and I'm going to speak in kind of computer terms because I feel like it's the best description for the
Mhm.
subconscious, which is the seat of all of our programming. It's the hard drive that, or the software, however you want to put it, that got programmed. And that programming, obviously the biological programming comes in when we're born and all of that. Now, the other programming is usually being installed by default between the ages of 1 and 11, barring traumatic events outside of that time period. So between the ages of 1 and 11, the child is starting to decide what means what. And this is based on authority figures in their life, based on peer groups, based on traumatic events, based on, media and things like that. And so, as well as repetition. And so the child's deciding, and this doesn't necessarily correlate with a good and bad upbringing. So people like, oh, I had a great upbringing, so you don't have negative programming. It's really how the child interpreted things during that
Mm,
age between 0 and
mm,
11. And so when the child interpreted things and decides this means that this, the world is this, I'm this. It could be
mhm,
I'm smart. It could be I'm stupid. It could be I'm enough. It could be I'm not good enough. It could be any realm of things that have to do with people or men or women or culture, anything. Now, once that belief system is decided by that child, again, usually during that time, then that is going to run everything. So once that programming goes in, those beliefs then dictate our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and ultimately our results.
mm,
And so
mm,
that's running. So while that's running, while we can wish things were different, maybe we even know what the belief is, while we can wish it were different and we're aware that it is, if the change isn't made at the subconscious level to change that, to pull it out of every level, not just the subconscious, every level that
mm,
it's actually having an impact. And then you can actually put in what needs to be. But it really has to be removing the negative programming first, and then you can put in the positive. You can't just put in the positive over top. So, I mean, a simple example like the one I said, I'm good enough or I'm not good enough. You have to really deal with the ramifications of all that and all the levels. And then once you've done that, you can put in what needs to be there. And it's a
mm,
very, very quick, painless, simple way to make change because unlike more traditional methods, you don't have to sit there in all the muck, you don't have to feel all the bad stuff. This is a database, it contains all of the content.
mhm,
So whether we
mhm,
recall it or not, it's all there. We don't actually have to sit in the yuckiness of it in order to make the change. And so the
mhm,
change is happening because you're giving permission. Without that permission, it doesn't
mhm,
work. And once you
mhm,
give permission, then I'm basically talking to the person's subconscious and telling it what to upgrade and to go after anything else similar because it knows more than we do.
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
most of the sessions are involved with actually just talking directly to the subconscious, and the person tells me when they're done, when the subconscious has done what
Mhm,
we asked, and then we move on to the next thing.
mhm,
So it's a pretty cool way.
mm,
It's super non-invasive as far as having to feel all of that stuff, and it's simple, it's fun, and then the results are tangible after every single one. And I have people looking for the results. Like, let's look for the positive differences in your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, or responses, because that's where it should show up. If there's real
I love
change happening,
that.
it should be showing up in your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and responses. If it's
Mm,
not, then the change actually isn't fully enacted yet. And so,
mhm,
keeping a constant like log of what those changes are shows that, gives the evidence for the
mm,
person to see that it's actually happening. And it's also great for me to
mhm,
understand what kind of progress I'm making, how effective this is, how fast people are making changes and how long it takes to resolve it. So then I can kind of get base statistics off of that. So in a
Wow,
way to
got it.
answer.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what comes to mind as you're sharing is I actually recently uncovered a limiting belief program for myself. And it was a belief that I'm never going to be pretty because when I was a little girl, I I had I had an experience with my dad where he took me to the salon. I had like hair about as long as I had, and I was actually 12 at the time. And he took me to the salon and had my hair cut off, and I looked like a boy. And that was so traumatic for me that, as you were saying, like in the moment, I decided I'm never going to be pretty. And so in my
And even I'm
life,
not pretty is even the one
yeah,
underneath of that. I'm not
yes,
pretty is
yeah,
even,
I'm
yeah.
not
And that's the
pretty.
underlying one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I recognize like in with so much of my life, like even now, like doing all these summit interviews, I'm constantly telling myself that, okay, you look great, you look stunning in videos, and just rewiring that thinking. So I just wanted to relate that example because it's such a fresh
Hmm.
discovery for me. And now
Yeah, and it's
we're
important. Yeah, you bring that up. So when people have those, we call them those identity based ones, like I'm not pretty, or I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or these type of things. Then what happens is that people will either undercompensate or overcompensate to prove that it's not true or that it
Mm,
is. And
mm,
so
mm,
if the person has the belief that I'm stupid, for example, then the compensation for that can either go a person who doesn't try very hard in school, never speaks up, and doesn't want anyone to judge them, or the person that goes
mhm.
overboard to be the perfectionist and to prove and prove and prove again that they are smart. But the thing is, no
Yes.
matter how much that person tries, if that underlying belief is still there, they'll never be able to compensate for it. But just by
Mhm,
reprogramming it at the subconscious level, and taking that out of there and putting in I'm smart, then it goes away,
mhm,
and there's no longer any need
mhm.
for compensation. There's a more kindness to the self, and that whole thing just kind of just peters off, and then the associations with it break away. So it's pretty cool.
It is really cool. And in fact, for this particular interview right now here with you, I'm wearing like a lot less makeup. Normally, I will
Nice.
like pack on the eye makeup because I'm like, oh, I need this and this. And I found
Mhm.
myself today, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to wear all that
Yeah,
makeup. I just want to look how I look. And you're
exactly.
absolutely right. I'm experiencing now the benefits
Hmm. Hmm.
of unpacking, getting that limiting belief out my system. Okay, now within the context of longevity, because I'm sure people are wondering, okay,
Hmm.
Suzaida, this
Hmm.
summit is about how to redefine what it means to age and become timeless. What
Hmm.
is all the subconscious reprogramming
Hmm.
and limiting beliefs have to do with that? So can you give the context for this discussion for that topic for what we're achieving with our audience?
Sure. I mean, aging is something that both, Patrick, my business partner and mentor, and myself are highly focused on. So, we're already doing, techniques with that and sessions with that. And I'll compare it to other medical issues, that I've worked on. So, as we talked about, the subconscious controls the body. The mind controls the body, the actual subconscious. It's running all of the body's programs. You're breathing right now without having to think about it. There's a realm of your heart's beating, you're not having to think about it. But again, like we talked about with the beliefs, it's the same thing with the body. There's an initial programming that's instilled, but if that programming is not upgraded and updated, then it will just be operating on this default system that was installed at the beginning of your life. Now, as far as the body's when we talk about the body, that default programming, that aging is more of a disease. We're not meant to actually,
Mm,
as a human species, to be aging as we do. There should be a
mm,
regeneration happening. that's a constant
Yes.
ongoing. But again,
Yes.
we're not in the driver's seat. We're not in the driver's seat of our potential right now. We're not sitting in there because the subconscious can do what it's programmed to, but it's like any computer. If you just take it once and you never update it and you never give it anything else, the actual
Mm.
ability of it is going to steadily decline
Yep.
because it can't
Yeah.
just keep operating on that original programming. So, as far as
That's a
physiological
great
things, now,
example, by the way, Tina.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the American Medical Association, British Medical Association have done a lot of studies working with, hypnosis, with the subconscious and all of that. And the results are astounding. We're talking people with major surgeries, let's say a mastectomy, just having one session before they go in, needing about half the amount of anesthesia as someone else. Coming out of the surgery, they have
Mm.
less pain, less side effects, they need less medication, and
Mm.
they leave the hospital an average of a day and a half before the other patients that didn't have this. That's just one example. Um, and I'll give just a one more example of a client that I had from previous clients. So he contacted me when this happened. He got hit by a car crossing the street, and he fractured his leg in all kinds of places, and they put all these screws in it, and it was a really big ordeal. And so he contacted me and wanted to work on the trauma as well as accelerated healing. And so we met together, since he'd already had great success with previous stuff, he already had a high expectation, which works in our favor. And so we
Mm.
worked on a couple of sessions, dealt with the trauma, neutralized that, and then we went after the accelerated healing. And so we instructed the subconscious what to do. And then I also gave some imagination, exercises and kind of, future imagination and things that are actually going on in the moment.
Mm. Mhm.
Imagination, as I like to put it, is really the programming language of the subconscious. We don't have a keyboard to our subconscious.
Mm. Mhm.
Imagination is the
Mhm.
way that we interact with it. The imagination
Wow.
is being created by the subconscious. So when we're using the
Mm.
imagination, the mind knows exactly what we're telling it to do. And even though it may seem fantastical, in this instance, he wanted to imagine that there were little gnomes, I think. There were little gnomes in there repairing the damage. They were hammering the stuff, they were working. So I said, okay, now that we've instructed your subconscious on what to do, I want you to imagine those gnomes working every chance you get. If you get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, make sure they're still working. And so he contacted me back, after a while, and he says, well, it was the strangest thing. I went up to use the bathroom that night, and I went back to bed, and I told the gnomes to get to work, and they threw up their hands and they said, but we're done. We could use some magic, but we're done. And he said, okay. He says, I was very confused by this response. It was not the normal response I got from my little gnomes in there. And in 2 days later, he had another imaging exam. So he went into the doctor to see
Mhm.
how the healing was progressing, and the doctors couldn't find any examples of any fractures at all. They were like, we've never seen anything heal
Wow.
this fast. And this was after his little gnomes,
Wow.
which are again
Love
part of the
it.
subconscious, had already told him
Mhm.
that they were done. And so that kind
Mhm.
of gives the example. And then I'll jump from there to personal examples. I mean, I grew up as a kid with migraines, allergies, and then as an adult, acid reflux, as
Mm.
well as I used to have these internal spasms that would cause me to pass out. And so I was hospitalized all the time for migraines. I was taking 2 to 3 allergy medications a day, nasal and oral as well.
Mm. Mm.
I was taking 2 to 3 times acid reflux medication a day. I couldn't go off it because it caused me so much distress. But just by getting sessions like this for myself, I don't do them on myself, but Patrick will do them on me, by reprogramming the subconscious and telling it what systems to address. And it knows. We don't have to be doctors to direct the subconscious. It knows what we're talking about. I mean, I no longer take any reflux medication daily. I never take I take no
Okay.
medication daily anymore. And that's
Yeah.
simply by reprogramming the subconscious. And
I
so
love that.
that may start to give you an idea of where we're going with what we would consider aging as a
Mm.
disease. And so,
Yeah.
and the work that we're doing with aging has to be a very thorough process. And this is not like a one session thing, because part of it is the belief system and the programming that's installed from when we're born, that this is supposed to happen at this age. When you age, this happens. As women, this is when it happens at this age, and all of these things, that this is what's This is what happens. This is factual. We age like this, and this is going to be your experience. Once you buy into that, that
Mm,
actually creates your
mhm,
experience. So we have to get rid of
mm,
all of that first. Any of that
yeah,
old, programming that you've heard, that you've been told, that you repeated, that medical professionals, anything, get rid of that first, and then start to instill the body's natural ability
mm,
to regenerate and to heal. And so we actually what we do is we reset the body, the body's age back to, for me, I'm going back to 26 at this point. I will be 50 in a couple of
wow.
months, and so
Wow,
I've been a
I love
guinea
it.
pig for these processes, and
Yes,
I look at pictures of myself from a year ago, 2 years ago, and I can tell that I'm
you can
already. I
see
mean, I
it.
have I have no makeup. I mean, I'm a little tired today actually, so my eyes are a little swollen. But but I mean, I don't have the lines that I did, and resetting
Mm,
the DNA. And I mean,
mm,
constantly
beautiful.
whenever I wake up in the morning, getting my body's healing team and my subconscious to, be focused on resetting that, because I've already done the sessions to do it. Make sure that it's resetting the DNA and the RNA to the original blueprint of health, of the perfect health of a 26-year-old. Keep regenerating all the systems in my body, the, reproductive system, the hair, the skin, all of it. And the
So
results
good.
are astounding. I'm the first guinea pig. I
Thank
mean,
you.
we've been working with a few other people as
I
well,
bet.
but I constantly am documenting the results. But I think, as soon as we can figure out, I think we're pretty much limited by what we think the subconscious is truly capable of. And that's where
Mm,
it comes in, our biggest limitation. But it's capable of all these things, we're convinced. And so
mm.
aging
Yes.
is, at the forefront of what we're doing, and the results are exciting.
Thank you for tying that all back together. And I want to keep us on time because I know you have clients to meet up with
Yeah.
right after. Now, there's three questions that I ask all of my speakers. And the first question is, what is your number one life hack for promoting your own longevity? I think we know.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, for every aspect of my life, I am a lifelong client myself of this, because as of yet, if I found anything that was working faster and more effective, I would be doing it, because that's what's the most important to me, is where are the results at, how fast are they, and is it efficient? And so for me, the subconscious is the key to it all. The subconscious is
Mm,
the hack to our aging, to removing disease
mm,
from the body, to all of
mhm,
it. And combined with that, it's positive mindset means everything.
mm,
I mean, positive
mhm.
mindset and seeing the glass half full, looking for the silver lining in everything, especially the negative.
Absolutely.
Where is the silver lining? Life is happening for me, not
Absolutely.
to me. And so when you really
Mhm.
shift that, and it can be in that, that the physiological responses to that kind of mindset are also, actually scientifically documented. And so I would say those two things combined,
Yes,
but upgrading your subconscious
powerful.
makes that positivity easier. It's hard to
Yeah,
say be
true.
positive when you've got the programming running that makes it difficult to do that. So, yeah.
Mhm. Oh my goodness, such good stuff. Now, two more questions. The second question is, where do you see the future of longevity headed?
I mean, there's so much science being in, happening in this field right now. I think, I think we're very close from a number of aspects. Not only from what we're doing with the subconscious, but scientifically, there's a lot going into this field. I think that people are going to start living longer and longer. I mean, for me, when I do my future projections, I do them way out. To be honest, I look
Mhm.
100 years, I look 150
Mhm.
years. I'm looking
Yes.
way out. I don't limit myself anymore by that. I think that's exactly, and not just for me, I think that's where the world is going. 200 years, I think we are a species that can live even longer than that. And so I think it's
Yep.
happening. I
I
think
believe
very
it.
soon we're going to be, seeing the reality of that. um, you know as far as the scientific aspects, how that becomes accessible to the average person versus the very rich. I think that's still to be determined, but it's all happening, and I think within 5 years the advancements will be substantial, substantial.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Love that. And the third question is, what is one thought or act that takes you back to your childlike, playful state?
One thought or act. For me, it's being in
Mhm.
nature. For me, it's being in nature here
Mm.
in Killarney, Ireland. I'm 30 seconds walk from the national park, and so I'm out there almost every day, 2 to 3 hours, and talking with the river and the trees and the lake, and learning how to communicate, letting my soul essence play, and imagining these things and seeing my soul essence playing in the river alongside me as I walk, and just having this fantastic, really letting my inner world be exceptionally fantastic.
Mm.
And I think as adults
Mm.
that we kind of come away from that and see that, oh, that's not real, so we shouldn't spend time there. But the inner world is so important to our happiness, and I'm walking and hiking and in the park, and I've just got this big smile on my face because I can see all these things, and it's so much fun, and it brings me so much joy and that playful energy to it,
Mm.
because you can feel the playfulness of all the things
Mhm.
around you. And so, yeah, that
Mm.
to me, that's, and so, I mean, if there's one little hint I could give is, don't be afraid to let your inner world go. People are like, oh, I'm going to be crazy, that's going to, it's not. We're given an imagination for a reason. We're meant to use it.
So true.
Have fun with it. Imagine
Love
all
it.
the things. Be joyful and playful.
Oh, thank you for that reminder. Now, I've asked Tina to offer you guys a free gift because I think her work is so remarkable, so effective, and I really want you all to be able to experience it. So I asked her to offer a free gift to you all. And Tina, can you describe what that free gift is?
Sure. I think you're going to like this gift. This is a very, very powerful and life changing experience. So, what I've done is I've recorded kind of an introduction to the subconscious intelligence. And I've recorded it in a way that it's fun. You get to establish this place in your mind that you can come back anytime you want. And then you get to start interacting with your own subconscious intelligence as if it were another person or a
Mm.
being or an
Mhm.
entity or an animal, even. And you get to start interacting with it in a way that you can start to get answers from easily and start to create a
Mm.
connection and even relationship with. And I find that my clients, this is the first session, so you're getting a basically a free session without any of the removing of programming for free. I do this with every single client at the beginning, $1,250 session. I do this as the first thing because
Beautiful.
it's so powerful. And because now people are tapped into their subconscious, it becomes a part of them. They feel connected with it. They start to create a relationship with it. They can now instantly get answers from their own subconscious and feel that
Mm.
support. And
So
so it's
good.
such a powerful tool. And so I'd like to give that to you all today and
Oh, thank you.
offer you that experience, to actually start tapping into your own subconscious potential.
Oh, so generous. I just love all of our speakers. They have such a huge giving heart, and they really truly understand the impact of what it means for you to be able to experience the work and want you to have that experience. So the link to access a free gift will be in the show notes. So stay tuned for that, or just check your show notes. And any parting words, Tina?
Well, thank you, first off, for having me today. I mean, this has been my pleasure. Obviously, I'm extremely passionate about talking about, the subconscious, but as human potential is really, what I'm here, to be a part of, and I would just like to, the listener, whoever is watching this and listening to this, to start to become aware that you are capable of so much more than you currently realize,
Yes.
so much more. And your
Yes.
current existence does not have to be, even if it's a good one, does not have to be what you experience for the rest of your life. You can level that
Mm.
up constantly. And I
Mm.
encourage you to think about the role of the subconscious in doing this. And feel free to contact
Mhm.
me, if you'd like to learn more. I'm sure she'll have the details for that.
Yes, yes, yes. And for how to connect with Tina, it will be in the show notes. And thank you so much, Tina. Very powerful parting words. Thank you for your generosity and your heart and sharing your gifts and your skill sets with the world. And everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this interview. This was so amazing. Love you all so much. Mwah.
Thank you so much.